more than half a century, Palestinians and Israelis have been locked in a deadly struggle over conflicting claims of what many call the Holy Land. The violence of each side against the other breaks out again and again. Unless there is real progress toward a settlement, there will almost surely be more Palestinian suicide bombings, more rocket attacks, more Israeli retaliatory strikes. The military occupation and resistance to it will continue. Painful suffering on both sides. What can the United States do to make sure that this conflict is ended in a fair and reasonable peace? That is one of the highest priority issues on the Obama administration's foreign policy agenda. I'm Landrum Bowling, a one-time foreign correspondent, later professor, college president, currently an advisor for non-governmental programs of humanitarian assistance and reconciliation in the Middle East. In that role and on other assignments in the region, I came to know a remarkable group of Israeli, Palestinian, and American leaders, all deeply concerned about how to end the violence. Among them are four of our most knowledgeable senior American statesmen. They are President Jimmy Carter, former Secretary of State James Baker, and two veteran foreign policy experts, General Brent Scowcroft and Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, both of whom served as national security advisors in the White House. Faced with all of the terrible things that have happened between the Palestinians and Israelis that continue to happen, the war in Gaza, the continuing of the occupation, and with a growing sense of bitterness and frustration, many people are saying that peace is not really possible. Are you still hopeful that a peace can be made?
Well, I am. I never have lost faith in the possibility or probability of inevitability of peace. And the reason I say that is because the overwhelming majority of Israelis and Palestinians, whether they're Fatah or Hamas, they all want peace.
The vast majority of the Israeli body politic are tired of being a nation perpetually at war. They want to see a peace agreement. They want to see a secure peace agreement. And so do the Palestinian people.
There's no question about the extent of the bitterness, but I think we have to change our way of doing things. And no longer can we sit down and say, we'll provide the table and we hope you, the Palestinians, and you, the Israelis, can come to a deal. We've got to play a more active role.
How do you deal with the question of what people you talk to?
You have to talk to people. You have to talk to people. You talk to your enemies like we did when we encouraged them to attend the Madrid conference and break the old taboo that Arabs and Israelis, or that Palestinians and Israelis and other Arabs and Israelis wouldn't talk to each other.
We were talking about Hamas, and I gather you think that we should find a way to talk to Hamas.
First of all, I think we ought to offer to talk to Hamas. I see nothing to be gained by ostracizing them. There's more than one Hamas. It is not a monolithic force.
Absolutely.
And the Hamas group inside Gaza has different perspective from the Hamas group, the two Hamas groups in Damascus. And in addition, I think if the peace process got moving, Hamas won't want to be left out of it. It will give them a tremendous incentive to come back in and participate.
How do you see the reasons that explain why there's been so much difficulty in getting an agreement?
I think it's because the leaders of Israel, for various reasons, political and deep religious beliefs and political beliefs, for the last 30 years have resolved that they're not going to withdraw from the occupied territories, from the West Bank. I think the most settlements in history were made during the time of President Clinton and when Prime Minister Barack was in office. There was almost an unrestrained increase in the number of settlements in. But I think the desire of leaders in Israel to occupy and colonize the land in the West Bank, that's been the key problem.
The hardliners on both sides are the biggest obstacles to achieving peace between Arabs and Israelis. And those hardliners are Arabs who will not acknowledge Israel's right to exist, and Israelis who want to keep the occupied territories.
At various times, both of you have made statements about the fact that there's a virtual package deal on the table already, that both Palestinians and Israelis know pretty much what the deal would be. How would you define that deal?
Well, you know, by the end of the Clinton administration, the Taba Accords had set out basically the four major areas of contention: 67 borders, Jerusalem shared, no right of return, and a non-militarized Palestinian state.
And both sides have had the chance to discuss this at length.
At length.
But no one from the outside, at the level that we're talking about, namely the President of the United States, has been willing to take the bit in his teeth and say, this is the position of the United States. And incidentally, if he says that, it will not be just the position of the United States.
The New York Times ran a full-page ad sponsored by Arab governments saying that they were prepared to make a complete and solid peace with Israel. Do you think this is a sincere proposal the Arabs have put forward?
Look, I don't care if it's sincere or not sincere. The fact is, if the United States came out with what Brent and I are talking about, they would back it, and that's what's important. What's in their heads or in their hearts, look, one can speculate, but it's not constructive.
And I think now's the time to move comprehensively, not piecemeal, not confidence-building measures. We need to move decisively and comprehensively now.
Finally, Mr. President, you are a man of vision. You look ahead a long way. What happens after a peace agreement is made?
One would be that Israel and all its neighbors could share the natural resources there. There could be a massive improvement in education, particularly among the Palestinians.
But I would add something more general and sort of maybe even more basic. It will give the Palestinians something that they haven't had, and that's dignity. And that is very important. It would give the Israelis something that they haven't had, an opportunity to participate in the prosperity of the Middle East.
It will turn the psychological climate of the Middle East around, both with respect to Israel and attitudes toward the United States. It would put Iran back on the defensive. It would steal the thunder from Hezbollah, Hamas, who feed on the discontent. It would end the refugee camps, a breeding ground for terrorism. It would give us a chance to move on the other issues in the Middle East with a positive support of the people of the region.